Hi, this is Dave, the old engineer. Just so you know, a month ago I had my 75th birthday, so that puts the dates in a little perspective. This video is about one of the episodes I call Road Stories, which are going to be stories about the things that I did when I was traveling around for my various sales and marketing positions at the companies I worked for. This one happened late in 1973. At that point, I was working for a company that made, among other things, low light level cameras that could be used outdoors for security. And we got a request from our sales rep in the Washington, D.C. area to bring a camera down so we could do a demo for the White House Communications Agency on the roof of the old Eisenhower Executive Office Building. There'd been Vietnam protests in 1971, and they wanted to see if it was useful for them to put night vision cameras on the roof of the Executive Office Building, which was next door to the street where the protests were held. So we were going to do the demo on the roof of the Executive Office Building, looking down at Executive Avenue, which runs between the Eisenhower Executive Office Building and the White House. These days it's closed off, but then it was open to traffic so we could make images of people driving and walking and all that. By the way, the Executive Office Building has been occasionally famous. It was, for instance, the place where the room was, room 180, where Richard Nixon made the famous tapes. So one evening we went to the White House, went in through the basement, which is the back door. It's a little bit below grade, and we hauled our equipment in there, and there were three of us that went along. Was our local sales rep who'd set this up, myself, and my boss, who was the president of the company that made the cameras, the guy that I worked for. And we were accompanied by a guy who was an officer in the White House Communications Agency, was also a Navy Chief Petty Officer. And I'll tell another story about him a little later. So when we got to the door, my boss, that is the president of our little company, remembered that he had left something in the car, so he went back to get it. And we said, well, we'll just go ahead and start moving things up to the roof and you can catch up. So we went along with a couple of the guys from the White House Communications Agency, WHCA they called it, and hauled our equipment across Executive Avenue and into an elevator in the Executive Office Building and up onto the roof. So we set the equipment up on the roof and did the demo, but my boss never showed up. And so we waited a little while and figured that he'd want to see the equipment set up and see what the view looked like and all that, but he didn't show up. So after a while we gave up, took the equipment apart and went back down the elevator and back over to the basement of the White House. Well, when we got there, we discovered that my boss was being detained by a couple of Secret Service agents. It turned out that he had made a little mistake. We got him released. It wasn't any problem. But what had happened is after he went out to his car, he came back in and they said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm the president." Now, this guy was a little on the arrogant side, so they just assumed that he knew that he meant that he was president of the company, but he never actually said so. And so they just detained him, figuring he was some kind of a nut. Well, we cleared that up and it was all fine. He was upset about missing the demo, of course, but he was actually more upset that he hadn't been treated better because, after all, he was a Republican and he'd voted for Richard Nixon. Unfortunately, nothing happened after the demo. Of course, what happened was already the Watergate stuff had already started. It was late in '73. And then in April '74, Saigon fell, and all of a sudden there wasn't any chance of any more further Vietnam protests. And then in August, Richard Nixon resigned as a result of the Watergate stuff. So this never really went anywhere, except that word got around that we had been invited to do a demo for the federal government in the Executive Office Building. And so we got invited to do a demo in Minnesota at the governor's mansion and actually got a contract. And we ended up doing an installation there in 15 below weather. But that's another story. Thanks for watching. There will be some more of these road stories that I'll turn into videos, and other things, of course, that I mentioned early on in this series. Comments are always welcome on either the presentations I've made or suggestions of things you'd like to hear me talk about. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.